بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. مشاهير علماء الأمصار is really a book that acquaints the talib with those great ai and his concentration upon Amsar, or upon cities, is of importance, and that is what we want to have a quick look at today, inshallah. And that is what is known as, because it's connected to the affair of the cities, but what is known as the midar of the asanid. The topic of the midar of the asanid. That is the topic that revolves around the midar, or the pivoting point of the chains of narration. The midar of the asanid is an issue that is very much related to this mas'ala and this topic of tabaqat, and it is related to a topic of the study of the regions where the scholars of hadith lived in. Because the muhaddithun, during the era of the companions, the era of the tabi'een, the atba' tabi'een, of course the companions, ridwanullahi alayhim, they moved to various regions across the globe. And those regions, wherever they settled, they became regions of ilm and knowledge and hadith and sunnah. Since that is the case, inevitably their students are going to be present within those regions, and they are, after them, and after those companions, they are going to continue the legacy of that companion. And that is exactly what happened in the various regions. And for that reason, Al-Imam Ibn Hibban, Mashahir Ulama al-Amsar, he mentions particular regions that were well known, ikhwan, and established for the knowledge of hadith. Makkah, Medina, Kufa, Basra, Yemen, Sham, Khurasan. Those are regions wherein we had companions, and wherein we had the spread of the ilm, or the knowledge of, either companions were there, or the spread of the sunnah and hadith continued and emanated from that area. But this topic of the midar of the asanid, which is what we want to look at today, is a topic of vital importance, and it is one that is regularly neglected. But it is during the period of the a'imma of hadith and the tulab al-hadith of the salaf, it was one of the topics, ikhwan, that they would concentrate upon, and they would embark and start out seeking. And that is the midar, as we mentioned, or the pivoting point of the asanid. What is intended by the midar of the asanid? Ikhwan, during the era after the companions, ridwanullahi alayhim, the a'imma of hadith, as we mentioned, that were present in the various regions and the various lands of the Muslimun, from time to time, and that is during the era of the Salaf, from time to time we had regions that had within it an imam from the a'imma of hadith, who had traveled for the knowledge of hadith, had taken from numerous shuyukh and a'imma, and then settled in a particular region and spread ilm. And he took, if he was from the tabi'i, or the atba' tabi'een, and he took from among the greatest of the companions, he took from the greatest of the tabi'een, afwan, and the companions of hadith. And if he was from the tabi'een, then he took from the companions and from the tabi'een, and the greatest of them in conveying hadith. From those a'imma, we had those, ikhwan, who established themselves in a region, and they were the last of those who took from particular imam, particular a'imma. And so, as far as the knowledge of hadith is concerned, from particular companions or tabi'een, who they had taken from and were their shuyukh, the knowledge of hadith of particular scholars ended with this individual. And that is to say, that there was no one that was present from their contemporaries that had the knowledge, the diraya, the riwayah of this imam. And thus the tulab al-hadith would travel from all of the regions of the globe to sit with this great imam, because of the fact that the ahadith of fulan, the ahadith of such and such an imam, You will only find them with him. Though na'am, he may have had contemporaries alongside him, but one or two things. Either they had passed away, or their contemporaries hadn't taken the ahadith of that great imam in the manner in which they had, alongside the ahadith of other ai And so he became an imam in his own right, and one of the greatest of those ai at that time, and an individual who there was no one like him in the dunya at that time. And that's what occurred when one studies asanid, is that you'll find that those great ai those who it is said concerning them, alayhi midarul isnad, that the isnad revolves, or the hadith revolves around that imam, you'll find those ai occurring and reoccurring in numerous ahadith and in numerous collections of ahadith, since he was from the important figures in the dissemination of the science of hadith and the dissemination of the ilm al-hadith. He was from the important figures in that era, either that he was from al-tabaqa al-rabi'a or al-thal, usually from the tabaqa al-thalitha or al-rabi'a. Those ai who had taken from the companions, and they had studied and had traveled for the sake of hadith. And so it is said concerning them, alayhim midar al-isnad, or alayhim midar al-hadith, that hadith revolved around them in their time. So if you can imagine, ikhwan, mathalan, here in England there was an imam that had traveled to the great ai. They traveled and sat with Imam Ahmad, taken from Yahya bin Ma'in, taken from Abdurrahman bin Mahdi, taken from Ishaq bin Rahawayah, taken from the ai, and then he returned to England. Inevitably, ikhwan, number one, there would be no one like him in England unless somebody else done something similar. But there would be no one like him in England, and without doubt, if you were serious about ilm, and particularly ilm al-hadith, then there is only one place that you can go, and that is to that individual. And thus, the tulab al-hadith, ikhwan, used to populate those circles and those classes of those individuals who were known to be of that nature. And so the reality of that affair had an effect upon a hadith and upon the knowledge of hadith, and that is that you found then that many ahadith revolved around a particular narrator. Those narrators, the students of hadith, when they would embark upon seeking hadith, they oftentimes would begin, and it is a perfect and a sensible place to begin, they would begin by collecting the ahadith of those individuals. And so those ai who it was said, alayhim midar al-asanid, or alayhim midar al-hadith, that hadith revolved around them, they would begin by collecting the ahadith of those great imams. And there are a number of benefits for that. The one who collects those ahadith, then he has a greater ability when it comes to muqaranat al-riwayat, when it comes to comparing riwayat and the narrations of individuals. Then he, number one, had taken from that great imam, and he would almost definitely have been familiar with the riwayat of those who were like unto him, who were his contemporaries. He would have been familiar with that. And so he would have been acquainted with the strongest version of those ahadith, and that would give him a great ability to discern the other riwayat and other ahadith that come to him from that imam, because it is possible that those who were students of hadith before him took from that same imam, and thus the riwayat should be the same. If the riwayat are not the same, then we have an indication of the fact that there is a problem with the one who took that from that imam, because all of those scholars, students of hadith who took from that one imam, their versions of the hadith are the same. And then along comes an individual who claims to have taken from the same imam, but the version of the hadith that he had taken from that same imam differs from the version that those strong thiqat had with them. And that then, of course, poses a problem. And so during that era, to take the ahadith from those great scholars, ikhwan, was the goal of every talib al-hadith. They wouldn't take from the strange individuals or the unknowns. Rather, they would take from those popular, famous ai those who were known for talib al-hadith, talib al-ilm, those who were known for traveling for hadith, traveling across the great regions, and then returning back to their land or residing in a particular land and spreading the knowledge of hadith and spreading the riwayat that they had. As it relates to our time, the knowledge of those who the asanid revolved around, again, is important, because many of the ahadith that we'll come across will have these individuals within them. And it is possible that a person may need to study and research a hadith. We mentioned previously that one of the methods in which a person studies a hadith is that he gathers its riwayat. He makes takhrij of the hadith and gathers its riwayat and its versions from the various sources of hadith. When he gathers them, he pens them down and he draws what is known as a shajara, the shajara of the isnad, or the branches, the various branches of the chain of narration. And then he compares and looks at those various chains. He looks at those who narrated, he looks at the contemporaries of those who had narrated, and he analyzes, does this hadith have a midar? That is there an individual within this hadith that the hadith returns back to? Almost as though the isnad of the hadith bottlenecks with this individual. So it may be that from the companions there are numerous companions, from the tabi'in there are numerous tabi'in, and he was from the greatest of those who took from those tabi'in. There were others alongside them, but he is the only one that remains, mathalan. And so the riwayah becomes popular from him. People travel the globe, travel from various parts of the globe to sit with him. They take from him, and from the things that they take is that hadith. And then they return back to their various areas. And so after him, the isnad, it spreads. The hadith, it spreads. And so there are various narrators, numerous narrators after him. But here the isnad bottlenecks at this narrator. Again, when we're looking at a hadith and the various wordings of a hadith, the various forms of a hadith, the manners in which it was narrated, the various chains of narration, our knowledge of who the isnad revolves around is of importance, and our knowledge of who the best of his students were and the strongest of his students were, those who took from him plentifully. Because if that is the case, if we have a knowledge of that, we're able to compare that and other narrations from that same imam. And so this ilm, ikhwan, is of importance, the knowledge of the midar of the ahadith. In our time, as we mentioned, at the time of the Salaf, they knew that a particular imam, and it is, and one must return back to him. It may be that imam, for the ahadith of the region of Basra, you have to return back to that imam. For the ahadith of the region of Medina, one must turn back to such and such an imam. For the ahadith of the region of Kufa, one must return back to such and such imam. Those regions where the Sahaba, they traveled, they settled, they resided, and their ahadith spread from that region. And then they taught them to the tabi'in, and they taught them to the atba' tabi'in. And so within each region there were certain ahadith that were popular. In order for a person to have a good knowledge of the sunnah, it was important for him to travel to those various regions to take the ahadith that was specific to those regions. With that being said then, the study then of the midar of the asanid, as we mentioned, ikhwan, is what we want to have a quick look at in today's session. In regards to the mas'ala, Al-Imam ibn Adi, he mentions a narration from the great Imam Ali ibn al-Madini. After mentioning his chain of narration, he mentions حدثنا الحسن بن عثمان التستري قال سمعت أبا زرعة الرازي يقول سمعت علي بن المديني يقول دار الحديث أو دار حديث الثقات على ستة. He said, after mentioning his chain of narration, that the ahadith of the thiqat, the ahadith of the trustworthy narrators, revolve around 6. that is, revolve around 6 individuals. This is Ali ibn al-Madini. He said the ahadith of the thiqat revolve around 6. And he wasn't speaking about a particular hadith, ahadith. The ahadith of the thiqat, 6. He said, رجلان بالبصرة, 2 men in Basra. ورجلان بالكوفة, and 2 men in Kufa. ورجلان بالحجاز, and 2 men in Hijaz. To Basra, to Kufa, to Hijaz. And of course, when they mention Hijaz, the intent is Mecca and Medina, or the regions of Mecca and Medina. Now, he mentions فأما اللذان في البصرة فقتادة ويحيى ابن أبي كثير. He said, as far as the 2 who are in Basra, then they are Qatada and Yahya ibn Abi Kathir. Of course, Qatada ibn Da'ama as-Sudusi. He mentions وأما اللذان بالكوفة فأبو إسحاق. There is a reference to Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i والأعمش. No, السبيعي. نعم السبيعي. نعم عمر. أعمش and Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i. We'll mention them one by one. Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i. We'll mention them in further detail, inshallah. وأما الذين بالحجاز, as far as the 2 in Hijaz, then الزهري وعمر ibn Dinar. Between Kufa, Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i and al-A'mash. And al-Hijaz, al-Zuhri and Amr ibn Dinar. It is, we'll see now, inshallah. And then he said, ثم سار حديث هؤلاء إلى 12. He said, then the hadith of these 6 extended to 12. That is, the hadith of these 6 continued to 12 other individuals. So these 6 were the midar of the isnad, and then these 12 at their time, the midar of the ahadith of those 6 were around these 12. It's still Ali ibn al-Madini. Imam Ahmad. No. So it's important, ikhwan, that we understand exactly what he's saying here. So he's saying the midar of isna of the asanid revolve around 6 individuals: 2 in Basra, 2 in Kufa, 2 in Hijaz. Then ilm, and of course when we're speaking of ilm, the riwayat, the hadith, their ilm was then passed on to numerous individuals, but in particular those who were the a'imma of those, or the true talamid, and the a'imma of their time, who were the possessors of the ilm of those 6, were 12. minhum bil Basra, and from them in Basra, and there were 6 in Basra. Minhum bil Basra, so you got those 6, 2 Basra, 2 Kufa, 2 Hijaz, then from them 12. And it's if you like, these are the Talamid of those 6, students of those 6, but they are the key students of those 6. They had hundreds of students, thousands of students, but these were the key students of those 6. Yani the 12 who went on to become great A'imma themselves in their own right. So the 6, of course, during their era there were hundreds alongside them, but they became the head of their field in that region, to the extent that there was no one during their time that gathered the knowledge that they gathered. But there were hundreds of ulama, but no one had gathered the ilm, the hifz, the thiqa, the travel, the rihla for hadith, the ahadith of various great a'imma, the way that they did. No. The ones that you should be concerned with, and that is these individuals and their ahadith, because of their adala, their dabt, their imama, and because of the fact that they've taken ilm, they traveled the various regions, which is one of the issues that the scholars of hadith used to praise and used to recommend and encourage, and that is al-rihla fi talab al-hadith, to travel for the purpose of seeking knowledge, because the knowledge of one region is going to be relatively limited to the a'imma who were within that region and their ilm. And so you'll find the a'imma in another region who were taken from other a'imma. Their knowledge may differ slightly, it's haqq and it is ilm, but they have with them that which some of the other a'imma in various other regions didn't have and didn't possess. And so they would travel to various regions, collect and gather, and then when they came of age, they would settle either back in their homeland, or they would settle in another region that pleased them and teach. Those who they taught were hundreds, thousands sometimes. But from them, there were shining individuals who were like them in their manner of traveling, in their manner of seeking ilm, in gathering from various shuyukh, various a'imma, and then they settled. So from those 6 then we have 12. In Basra, we have Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba. So these names we should be concerned with, ikhwan. The reason, before we continue, the reason as well we wanted to look at these, or this narration in particular, and these a'imma, is because of the fact that when we do get into Mashahir Ulama al-Amsar, we have some 1,600 narrators to look at. Naturally, we're not going to stop ikhwan and discuss them one by one. La yumkin. So a lot of our sitting are going to be lists that we can return back to. The idea behind the book, as Imam Ibn Hibban himself mentioned, is to familiarize the Talib al-Hadith with those narrators. And it is not an in-depth study of the biography, but to familiarize the Talib al-Hadith with the name. If there are any issues related to him, he mentions them briefly, and when or what era he lived in. And that is his main concern. That the Talib al-Hadith is, these individuals, and he mentions that in the Muqaddimah, it is not befitting that the Talib al-Hadith doesn't know them, he's not acquainted with them. So the idea behind the book, and as you can see, it's not a big book, so there's no way this has in it an in-depth discussion of 1,600 narrators. And it is the idea is ta'rif, that a person acquaints himself with them. So there are going to be lists when we discuss, or when we actually enter into the book. There are going to be lists. Here and there we'll stop, but there are going to be lists that we will be working through. With that being said, there are certain individuals among those lists that we should be extra concerned with because of this very subject. Because of the fact that ahadith in their time revolved around them. And so these are names that we should be very well acquainted with. Naam, so he mentions in Basra, these now are the 12 who took from those 6. In Basra, Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba. Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba. Aruba. Ain with fatha. Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba. وشعبة ابن الحجاج. ومعمر بن راشد. معمر بن راشد. معمر بن راشد. نعم. وحماد بن سلمة. Bear in mind, some of these ai they traveled and they resided in other places for periods, Yemen and elsewhere. Taken from exactly from, and the other ai, but they were in particular, and the ahadith of those, from those who while they were the focal point of the scholars of the students of hadith, that focus after they passed away moved to these individuals. No, not necessarily. Yeah. It occurs. Those hadith are present, and as we mentioned, there were thousands of ruwat, and it doesn't necessitate that they were present with every single jalsa of tahdith. But the point is, the riwayah, oftentimes you'll find when you gather the asanid, that somewhere there will be a riwayah of him, fulan and fulan. For him, and so the benefit that you get from that is those turuq and those chains, we pay extra concern to them. How have they narrated them? What were the differences between their narrations and the narrations of other than them? Because sometimes there are ahadith where the muhaddith has to make tarjih. That is, he has to come to a conclusion as to which version of the hadith is the most correct. So sometimes, for example, the narration from a particular imam was narrated by some of its chains as a hadith that is mursal, مثلا, attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, but it's mursal. And then there are a number of other chains. And of course, for those who are not acquainted, the mursal is the hadith wherein the tabi'i narrates from the Prophet ﷺ. And then we have a number of other chains of the same hadith, but those other chains have it as a statement of the Sahabi. So those other chains mention the same wording, exactly the same, but they end in Qala Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. No mention of the Prophet ﷺ. And so the muhaddith now has a mission in trying to decide, is it marfu' mursal or is it mawquf? Which of the because it's going to be one of the two. Which of them is most correct? And so it doesn't necessitate that because of the fact that we have this marfu' that is mursal, and the one that's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, that these now come and they back it up. La. Because the end of the isnad differs. This is the athar of the Sahabi, this is a hadith. So it's not said that this supports this. La. So there's a decision that the muhaddith has to make. His decision and his tarjih, and what he decides is the rajih as it relates to the hadith, and what is conclusive will return back to factors that he must look at. From the greatest of the factors is from the mukthirin, and those who were from the strongest of the tabaqa يعني الأولى, الطبقة الأولى, from those أئمة. We're not talking about the tabaqat that we've discussed now. The أئمة, they have tabaqat of ruwat. No. There's a lot of tabaqat for us to familiarize ourselves with it. From the أئمة, there are tabaqat. And that is tabaqat in terms of strength and trustworthiness as it relates to the ahadith of such and such. And you'll find that regularly in the kutub of su'alat, the kutub and the books wherein the A'imma of hadith would ask the great imam that was present at his time concerning issues related to hadith. Many of those questions revolve around who is more beloved to you. Fulan, yani in the narrations of fi Zuhri, مثلا, or fi Amr ibn Dinar, Fulan or Fulan. And two of them were strong contemporaries of each other and students of that imam. But which of them is the best? And so they would ask Imam Ahmad, they would ask Daraqutni, they would ask the A'imma, Yahya bin Ma'in, Abdurrahman bin Mahdi and others. Who do you hold is the best of the two concerning this imam? And so they would oftentimes say, Fulan is the most, is ahab ilayya. Such and such is most beloved to me from the two. And that, ikhwan, gives one benefits from that as we mentioned, as it relates to making tarjih between, for example, these two riwayat. It's a marfu' mursal, and over here mawquf. Which of the two is most authentic? Is it a hadith or is it a statement of a companion? Both of these chains of narration appear to be authentic. These sets of chains appear to be authentic, so we must come to a conclusion as to what is most correct. And so, again, one of the things that we will look at is who is within these chains. Who's within these chains of narration? So if we have a version of the hadith that is from those who the midar of the asanid revolve around, of course, ikhwan, there is weight in their narrations because of who they are, what they are known for in terms of integrity and trustworthiness. So the scholars of hadith would embark, when collecting ahadith, they would embark upon collecting the ahadith of these individuals. In fact, they would likewise author, and we'll, if time permits, we'll mention some of the authorships. They would author around the ahadith of those individuals. Musnad Malik, مثلا, or al-Zuhriyat, مثلا, or Musnad Amr ibn Dinar. And though these A'imma, people would author books just around their ahadith. So the Talib al-Hadith familiarizes himself with their riwayat. طيب, and so in Basra, we have Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba, Shu'bah, Ma'mar bin Rashid, Hamad ibn Salama. We mentioned Hamad? Hamad ibn Salama, Jarir ibn Hazim. Jarir ibn Hazim, and Hisham al-Dustawai. Hisham al-Dustawai. And then he mentions وَصَارَ بِالْكُوفَةِ إِلَى الثَّوْرِ. Three in Kufa. قال وصار بالكوفة إلى الثوري سفيان وابن عيينة سفيان وإسرائيل reference to إسرائيل بن يونس no, it's a name. Israel was the name of Yaqub. Allah Azza wa Jal gave him the title of Israel. So his name was Yaqub. كل الطعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه من قبل أن تنزل التوراة. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned all food was halal to Bani Israel other than that which Israel made haram upon himself. Which was a reference to camel meat. Israel bin Yunus. Sufyan al-Thawri. Yaqub made, Yaqub was afflicted with sciatica. Sciatica is it's a nervous condition. Usually starts in the lower back, a trapped nerve or what have you, and then it slowly but surely it descends ordinarily down one leg, and it causes numbness. As it descends, it causes numbness. So over the period of perhaps a few weeks, a month, slowly but surely, this numbness continues to descend down the leg. Illness. So he returned the illness back to him eating camel meat and camel milk. Camel's meat and drinking camel's milk. He concluded it must be that. So he made camel's meat and camel's milk haram upon himself. So Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed كل الطعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه. All food was made haram, was halal to Bani Israel, other than that which Israel, يعني Yaqub, other than that which he made haram upon himself. وسار بالحجاز no, three. سفيان الثوري سفيان بن عيينة الإسرائيلي. We're going to mention them, Ikhwan. Don't worry about the names right now. We're going to reiterate them, inshallah. وسار بالحجاز ابن جريج ومحمد بن إسحاق صاحب السيرة. ومالك. No, مالك لازم had to be in there. قال أبو زرعة, and Abu Zur'a said, it's connected. It's connected. You'll see. قال أبو زرعة وصار حديث هؤلاء كلهم إلى يحيى بن معين. Abu Zur'a said, the hadith of all of these ended with Yahya ibn Ma'in. And he gathered all of their ilm. No. There is another statement that is similar to this, a statement of Abu Dawud al-Tayalisi, who mentioned وجدنا الحديث عند أربعة. He said we found hadith with 4 people. Abu Dawud al-Tayalisi, not Abu Dawud Sahib al-Sunan, who is Sijistani. Abu Dawud al-Tayalisi was from the shuyukh of Abu Dawud al-Sijistani. نعم أحسنت. He said وجدنا الحديث عند أربعة. We found hadith with 4, يعني with 4 people. الزهري وقتادة والأعمش وأبي إسحاق. Again, we see the same names repeating themselves, which indicates that the Imma recognized that they were ala qimma, and they were at the pinnacle of hifz and collecting the sunnah, collecting the hadith. And thus it was during the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz ibn Ishaq, Abi Ishaq, al-Sabi'i, Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i. During the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he commissioned the Imam al-Zuhri with the gathering of the Sunnah because of who he was. الزهري معروف يعني الزهري. وكان الزهري, he continues, Abu Dawud still, وكان الزهري أعلمهم بالإسناد. Zuhri was the most knowledgeable of them concerning isnad. وكان قتادة أعلمهم بالاختلاف. Qatada was the most knowledgeable of them concerning اختلاف. And that is the اختلاف and the اختلافات that occurred with the A'imma and what have you, the A'imma of Hadith. And there were differences in chains of narration and what have you. And he was most acquainted and familiar with the اختلافات and the asanid and the mutun. وكان أبو إسحاق أعلمهم بحديث علي وعبد الله ibn Mas'ud. That is, Abu Ishaq was the most familiar with the ahadith of Ali and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. وكان عند الأعمش من كل هذا. And A'mash had all of that. All of the above. All of the above. نعم. It was Ali and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Ali and Ibn Mas'ud. He did disparage Ahmad. He wasn't around the disparagement, but he did. No. So just to mention then, Qatada, or the first of them rather, to mention just a little around the 6 and their narrations. Often they narrate those who they narrated from and those who narrated from them. نعم أبو زرعة الرازي. As far as Qatada is concerned, then he's Qatada ibn Di'ama, ibn Qatada, ibn Di'ama, ibn Qatada, again, Qatada ibn Di'ama ibn Qatada. While some mention Qatada ibn Di'ama ibn Ikaya. Ibn Ikaya. No. Finish the statement of Abu Dawud. السدوسي أبو الخطاب البصري. السدوسي أبو الخطاب البصري. He was also known as Al-A'ma, since Qatada was blind. Al-A'ma. Ibn Di'ama, afwan, Ibn Di'ama, Ibn Qatada, or Ibn Ikaya السدوسي. Is it tribe? The tribe? No. Hafiz ibn Hajar in Taqrib mentions concerning him من رؤوس الطبقة الرابعة, وقال ثقة ثبت. It was mentioned concerning his ilm الرابعة. He was at the head of الطبقة الرابعة. What was الرابعة? The lower wusta. No. Wait, but with mumarasa, it sticks. No, just الرابعة. كلمته هو من رؤوس الرابعة. As we said, never does Hafiz ibn Hajar use a numbering system for jarh wa ta'dil. If he ever mentions a number, رابعة خامسة, that's strictly طبقات, the level. Never does he say he is الثالثان means in jarh wa ta'dil. You always mention ثقة ثبت أوثق الناس صدوق سيء الحفظ. You'll always mention the jarh or the ta'dil. ثقة ثبت. Double barrel, which is second in terms of concerning his ilm. سلام ابن مسكين mentions حدثني عمرو بن عبد الله قال لما قدم قتادة على سعيد بن المسيب وجعل يسأله أياما وأكثر. He said when Qatada came, this is Amr ibn Abdullah, he said when Qatada came to Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, he began to ask him for days, and he questioned him for days or more. فقال له سعيد, so Sa'id said to him, أكل ما سألتني عنه تحفظه? said, everything you've asked me about you memorize it. قال نعم. He said, yeah. He said, سألتك عن كذا فقلت كذا وكذا وسألتك عن كذا فقلت فيه كذا وكذا وسألتك عن كذا وقلت قال الحسن فيه كذا حتى رد عليه حديثا كثيرا. So he continued to do so. He said, I asked you about this and you said this and this. I asked you about that and you said that and this. I asked you about such and such and you said that Hassan said such and such. I asked you about such and such and you said such and such. And he mentioned a hadith from the things that Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib had mentioned to him. فقال سعيد قال يقول سعيد ما كنت أظن أن الله خلق مثلك. He said, I didn't believe, realize that Allah Azza wa Jal has created the likes of you. And رجل عجيب, and he was considering the fact that he was blind. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. Ask him question after question, say, are you memorizing everything I'm saying to you? Or are you just asking me? Because you can't write, you can't see. So, all this as'ila, what are you doing? He said, memorize. He said, no. I asked you about such and such, and you said such and such. I asked you about such and such, you said such and such. I asked you about such and such, and you repeated it from days of questioning. He said, والله ما كنت أظن أن الله خلق مثلك. عجيب. قتادة. الحسن علي بن أبي طالب صلى. Even though Hassan al-Basri was from a similar طبقة, Hassan al-Basri was from الرابعة, but يعني الثالث. You have ثالث there? Upper middle, yeah. Upper middle. I mean, it's possible, but the ear is close. Anyone? Yeah, but the lower, the majority of their riwayat are from the tabi'in, kibar tabi'in. Well, the higher, they're a blend of tabi'in and sahaba. But the lower, the majority of the riwayat, other than rarely, was from tabi'in. No. مطر الوراقي said ما زال قتادة متعلما حتى مات. He said Qatada continued to learn until he died. He never ceased learning until he passed away. We're going to mention a few lists again now, Ikhwan, so prepare for some lists. Now, as far as the shuyukh of Qatada, then at the head of them, Anas ibn Malik, radiyallahu anhu. Then we have Budayl ibn Maysara, who was thiqah. and was from his contemporaries. Budayl, Bu, Budayl, Budayl ibn Maysara was from his contemporaries, and he was ثقة. أخرج أحاديثه ميم سين. أحسنت. بشر بن عائد المنقري. بشر بن عائد عائض المنقري الصدوق سين. بشر بن كعب ابن أبي الحميرة، أو عفوا أبي الحميري، أبي الحميري. بشر بن كعب ابن أبي الحميري، أبي الحميري لعله. الحميري العدوي، ثقة مخضرم من الثانية، من الثانية، كبار التابعين. مخضرم، مخضرم. المخضرم يا اخواني is always going to be من الثانية. كذلك بكر بن عبد الله المزني، ثقة ثبت جليل. بكر بن بكر بن عبد الله المزني، بكر بن عبد الله المزني، بن عبد الله المزني. No, I don't have any mention of that. Ain, no. So, but he died 106, and so he's more than likely ثالثة. More than likely ثالثة. Why? Because what did we say about الأولى الثانية؟ أحسنت. Likewise, from them Al-Hasan ibn Abi al-Hasan al-Basri al-Ansari مولاهم. ايش معنى مولاهم؟ From the freed slaves. And you'll find that a lot, ikhwan. Al-Basri, al-Ansari مولاهم. And he was Ansari, but he was not aslan, not originally Ansari, but he was from the freed slaves of Ansar. So you'll have that a lot with the narrators. Fulan ibn Fulan, مثلا الهذيلي أو الحذلي مولاهم. فهمت؟ القرشي مولاهم، الهاشمي مولاهم. That is the Hasan al-Basri. كان يرسل ويدلس، وهو رأس الطبقة الثالثة. All of this كلام is حافظ ابن حجر. حميد بن هلال العدوي، حميد بن هلال العدوي، دال. أيوة. ثقة عالم. من الثالثة. من الثالثة. ايش الثالثة؟ ها؟ which أحسن. فهمتوا. ثقة عالم. نعم. From them, Sa'id ibn Abi Burda. What we probably do with the shuyukh is just mention the more popular from them. أيوة. سعيد بن أبي بردة ابن أبي موسى الأشعري. سعيد بن أبي بردة ابن أبي موسى الأشعري الكوفي. ميم دال سين قاف. وهو من أقرانه. قزويني. نعم. هو من أقرانه يعني he was from his contemporaries. كيف how this issue of him being a contemporary and his sheikh as well. كيف ها what is it contemporary. أحسنت. So you have to remember with hadith, your sheikh is the one that narrates to you. Whoever narrates to you is your sheikh in the hadith. فهمت. If he does so plentifully, he's min shuyukhik, even if he's your contemporary. صحيح. And you had that with the A'imma of hadith. If you remember Imam Ahmad, Yahya bin Ma'in, they would move together. And sometimes they would narrate, they would have majalasat and sittings of muraja'a and revision. Well, sometimes in those jalasat, they would narrate to them a hadith that the other one didn't have. That occurred regularly. And so he becomes, in essence, though he's a contemporary, he becomes from his shuyukh as well, because he narrates from him. سعيد بن أبي بردة ابن أبي موسى. ميم دال سين قاف. ثقة ثبت. His رواية عن ابن عمر is مرسلة. من الخامسة. من الخامسة. صغار تابعين. صغار تابعين. And so what do you understand from that? Qatada himself was min which is why he said روايته عن أبي موسى عن ابن عمر مرسلة. So it indicates clearly Qatada, and it occurs regularly, took from someone who's of a lesser level than him. سعيد بن المسيب إمام. خاء ميم تاء سين قاف. خاء ميم لا خاء صحيح البخاري. ميم مسلم. تاء سين قاف ترمذي نسائي قاف ابن ماجه. Who's missing from the six? أبو داود. نعم. وهو أحد العلماء الأثبات الفقهاء الكبار اتفقوا على أن مرسلاته أصح المراسيل من الثانية. مات بعد 90. So he is from the علماء الأثبات, يعني from the firm علماء. It's probably better than double praise, a multiple praise, multi-level. نعم لا شك لا شك more praise than him. أحد العلماء الأثبات والفقهاء الكبار اتفقوا على أن مراسيله أو مراسيله أصح المراسيل. There is اتفاق and consensus that his marasil are the most authentic marasil. His marasil are the most authentic. From the tabi'een are those who it is known that when they yursil, that the missing link was a companion. مات بعد 90. Died after 90. After 90. Midnight. Okay. From them, Sulaiman ibn Yasar al-Hilali, who was the Mawla and the free slave of Maymuna. Sulaiman ibn Yasar. مولى of ميمونة. ثقة فاضل من كبار الثالثة. From them شهر ibn Hawshab. شهر ibn Hawshab مشكلة. يعني the كلام about شهر طويل عريض. شهر ibn Hawshab. That's a name that you should put to mind, put to memory. There's a lot of khilaf around Shahr. He was a mawla of Asma bint Yazid. صدوق كثير الإرسال والأوهام. صدوق كثير الإرسال والأوهام. As we said, anyone has that type of description, which is Ahsan 5. Anybody has that, then you really need to return back to the Kalam. If we had time, we'd crack open to have Tahdib there. Yeah, that's what's most conclusive. Allah Ta'ala alam. Some try to salvage him. Someone tried to salvage him, like this guy here in Leeds, Abdullah Yusuf Judea. Abdullah Yusuf Judea is a Ikhwani, but in Hadith he has he's got some good knowledge of Hadith. لكن يخالف الأئمة ويخالف القدماء كويتي إخواني. He has some these been leads has done for years إخواني ما أريد يا إخوان يعني امرأة يا إخواني ما أريد إخواني apparently I don't know people say that it was that there's some fatwa about making music halal and food this and that halal and that and this halal you know or thereabouts. But he has a bath around Shahr ibn Hawshab. I remember being as a talib in Kullat al-Hadith, I read the whole bath. And it's relatively extensive in the Jama'. But the mushkila is the conclusion is غلط. After all of that, يعني كلام طويل, conclusion is غلط. إما في حديث يعني they in terms of their position with him they hold him to be مقبول within that realm. The one who is hadith, if he's by himself, his hadith is not relied upon. But he may support. He's khamisa. But some hold that he is أقرب إلى السادسة 6. Because remember the 5 and 6 is the ijtihad of Hafidh ibn Hajar. So others don't even hold him to be within 5. Yeah, as well. نعم. From his shuyukh, similarly, Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Yeah. Al-Qurashi, مولاهم المكي. شوف القرشي مولاهم خاء ميم دال سين. But he was from those who said concerning him that he was from the leaders of the tabi'in in ilm. Ata ibn Abi Rabah. ثقة فقيه فاضل. لكنه كثير الإرسال من الثالثة. تانية 114. الثالثة أكمله أبو مصطفى. لا عادي like تدليس, similar to تدليس. يعني just like we say it wasn't an aim to make تدليس. Similarly إرسال. It's just no it's a مشكلة لكن it's just like look شوف it's just like right now we all day will say Sheikh Nasir said, Sheikh al-Albani said, لكن we haven't met Sheikh al-Albani. We heard that by way of a wasita. There's a mediator or a middleman between us and Sheikh Nasir. When do you ever say, oh, I heard by way of such and such that Sheikh Al-Albani said? And nobody really dispraises the practice. We trust that your sources are jade and that you're happy with your sources. And we know that you are diligent in trying to make sure that you're narrating what is haqq, that you wouldn't narrate something that wasn't established and affirmed upon the Shaykh as far as we're concerned. And so for you to say, Sheikh Nasir said, we understand from that you've done some background research in order to come to the fact that Sheikh Nasir actually said it. Haqiqatul Amr, Sheikh Nasir may not have said it. For him, our reliance is upon your narration, but we trust your narration. Now, forget about one of us. If Sheikh Rabi' said, مثلا, that, I'm not sure if Sheikh met Sa'di, but if Sheikh Rabi', let's say, didn't meet Sa'di, and he said, Sa'di said, are you going to hesitate and have any doubt that the Sheikh has it with him established that Sa'di said? None of us would question it. But that is an example of irsal. So Ahl al-Hadith take from that verse actually that the thiqah, you don't need tabayyan, na'khud minhu, we accept from him. Therefore the affair of irsal, yani it's affair intensified later, with the establishment of Ilm al-Hadith as a science, yani the study of those who made irsal intensified later. After the fitna, al-bid'ah, and the spread of bid'ah and fitna and what have you, it became something that intensified back then. But during that time, for you to narrate as an imam who's trustworthy, not known for lying, not known for falsely, not known for bal, you're known for being rigorous. So if he said, the Prophet said, exactly, with the nearness of the era, no. The hadith, al-irsal is irsal. Al-irsal is irsal. But you may have a scenario whereby, na'am, there's irsal, but we have strong factors indicating that it is the missing link is such and such. Depends on who does it as well. مثلا if it's Sa'id ibn Musayyib, his mursalat are the strongest. No. Generally, it's who he attributes narration to. It isn't always used specifically for the tabi'i with the messenger. Sometimes it's used with the missing or removing someone else lower. Then nah. But it's referred to as irsal as well. Sometimes they mention a fatwa. Ahsan. Exactly. They just mention the hadith. Well, that such and such said. No. It would, because if you have to remember, in those days, the fuqaha, or not like the fuqaha of the latter generation, their fiqh was taken from a matan and mutun that they study with their shuyukh, and then they move on to another matan and study with until he becomes a faqih. The faqih, the fuqaha in those days, were ulama of hadith. The fatawa revolved around sunnah. Yani I'm well acquainted with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. I have hundreds, thousands of riwayat, hundreds of thousands of riwayat, asanid, chains of narration, versions, so on. And so I pass a verdict based upon the sunnah that I know and my knowledge of sunnah. And of course they took from the greatest of the fuqaha in their era. You know. But fiqh revolved around, in those days, fiqh revolved around hadith and what those ai understood from those hadith. طيب. Similarly, we mentioned, no, from his shuyukh, نعم, Amr ibn Dinar. من شيوخ القتادة. Amr ibn Dinar, perhaps we'll leave his, because he's present among the six. تاء سين قاف. تاء سين قاف. ثقة ثبت مكي من الرابعة. فور لو وسطى. طيب. Likewise from his shuyukh, محمد بن سيرين. محمد بن سيرين ثقة ثبت عابد كبير القدر. And he was from those حافظ, as Hafiz mentioned, كان لا يرى الرواية بالمعنى من الثالثة. He did not used to see the permissibility of narrating with ma'na. الرواية بالمعنى is a branch from the branches of مصطلح الحديث, the permissibility of narrating with meaning. أهل العلم and أهل الحديث discuss whether or not it is permissible for a person who's taken a hadith, مثلا he didn't record it in writing, مثلا, but he remembered it, مثلا, from a majlis of tahdith, but the exact words he doesn't remember. Exact word doesn't remember, but he does remember the meaning, and he positively remembers the meaning. Just like if I were to say, for example, your father said you should go home, sit down, and reflect deeply upon your actions. And so when he narrates, he says, your father said, return to the house, sit down and check yourself, مثلا. Think about your actions. That is the meaning of the statement. And it is what the Prophet ﷺ intended. And that is the issue That is what the scholars discuss. For the one who understands the statement, understands what the intent of those wordings and what the intent of that statement is it permissible to narrate with meaning? And they generally permit narration, riwayah bil ma'na. Muhammad bin Sirin didn't used to see it. Yani exact words were bas. Exact words or don't narrate. No. No. أحيانا they'll say oh كما قال, but not always. طيب. If we move on to some of his talamid, from his students, حجاج بن أرطعة. حجاج بن أرطعة is مشكلة. Before we get into the talamid, Qatada likewise had some female teachers. From them, Hafsa bint Sirin, Muhammad's sister. They were from a household of ilm. Muhammad bin Sirin, Anas bin Sirin, Hafsa bint Sirin, Muhammad ibn Sirin, bin Sirin, Anas ibn Sirin, Hafsa bint Sirin. ال-Hudayl al-Ansariyah. داء ثقة من الثالثة. أيوة كيف. ثقة من الثالثة. نعم. Similarly, Safiya binti Shayba from his shuyukh. دال سين قاف. صفية بنت شيبة ولها رؤيا. لها رؤيا. She saw the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. No, she's نعم شو ثانية. Yeah, she narrated from Aisha and others. Dal Sin Qaf. There's an issue with her riwayat. She has a riwayah in Bukhari. Sama' from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam al-Darqutni argues concerning the affair. Imam al-Darqutni argues that she wasn't mudrika. She had no idrak. That is, though she narrates with sama, she didn't perceive what she narrated at the time. That would be mursal sahabi. It wouldn't be mursal of sahabiya because she's not a sahabiya in that sense. But she is, as we mentioned yesterday, it's one of the issues that the Imam Hadith discuss. The one who has a ru'ya, before she becomes, and he or she becomes, has tamyiz and has idrak and perceives what's going on, is it said that they're companion? Hafid ibn Hajar mentions, na'am, they have sharaf al-suhbah. They do have the nobility of the title, but other than the fact that they saw him, then they are in everything else considered tabi'een, because they only saw him when they were young and they were not old enough to perceive. Or what he argues, Hafid ibn Hajar argues, that he saw them, that is, the Prophet ﷺ saw them. So him seeing them, and in some cases even making dua for them, him seeing them and them seeing him what they couldn't perceive, that at least gives them the sharaf and the nobility of suhbah, being considered falling under the category of suhbah. But when we're dealing with hadith, they're considered tabi'een. Ahl al-Ilm differ concerning it because of the fact that it is a relative affair, because some children reach 10 years before others. So it's oftentimes ring fenced at about 6 years old. So the issue here is she has ru'ya. Daraqutni mentions that she could not have had idrak. Now, what may have happened, is that someone was present, let's say a child was present at an instance or an occurrence where they were too young to perceive. When they became adults, the adults who were there informed them, the Prophet ﷺ said such and such. So when she narrates, she says, she did. But she didn't understand what he was saying. But she did. For him. Just like when I was in Medina, I used to bring Hakeem, Ammar and their sister to the durus of Sheikh Ubaid. And they sit in the back of the masjid. They're about 5, 4 and 3. So they would sit in the back of the masjid, listen shwaya and play shwaya. But if they were to grow and say, I used to attend the durus of Sheikh Ubaid when I was young, it wouldn't be a lie. I can أنت ما فهمت شيء. No, it's not them, it's her. Because she was there when he said it, but she was too young. There they are. The hadith is accepted. No hadith is rejected, no, it's accepted. But the issue is her saying, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say in the narration. This is what the argument revolves around. Hold on. She's saying, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, when you were young, when you heard those words, you didn't perceive them. But on the face of it, what she's saying is true. She did hear the Prophet ﷺ say those words, but she just couldn't perceive them. Now, later, she understands them and she knows she was there as a baby. So I heard them I did hear them. Fahimd? So if she were to say, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say such and such and such and such, then she's not lying. But the riwayah, there's a mushkil in the riwayah. Because you didn't hear it. Your narration is not based upon your sama. This is the issue. Your narration is not based upon your sama. Your narration is based upon the narration of somebody else, even though you did hear it. For him, even though you weren't old enough. So just like there's somebody in here, somebody brings his son, 1, 2 years old, just about walking, and he's just playing about in the masjid. And here and there, he sits and he listens. He doesn't know what's going on. And actually, he just wants to get that thing the son from over there. But then when he grows, he says, yeah, I was there when Aboo Hakeem said such and such and such. Or I heard Aboo Hakeem say such and such and such. And left it like that. Now, you could argue and say, well, hold on, no, 1 second. Where did you get that from? Because you weren't old enough to understand those words. There's no way you could have narrated that from what you heard that day. Where did you get those words from? So it's inevitable someone else would have narrated it to her, which is not an issue. But the point is, her saying, I heard, is not based upon actually what you heard, even though you did hear it. It's based upon somebody else telling you later. No. And that's the argument of Daraqutni. No. I wanted to do all 6 tonight and get into Mashahir next week. Anyway, we could briefly just mention each one of them. So next to them, of course, Imam Muslim. No, we're not going to go into the shuyukh and all that. Imam Muslim, Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Shahab al-Zuhri. No, we won't go into the students and whatnot. Although there is fa'idah, sarahatan. There is fa'idah in it. There is fa'idah. We'll see. We'll see. Of course, he's from the Tabaqa al-Rabi'ah. This is now Zuhri. This is the next one of the 6. Zuhri from the Tabaqa al-Rabi'ah. نعم lower وسطى. محمد بن مسلم ابن عبيد الله ابن عبد الله ابن شهاب الزهري. من الرابعة. What is said concerning him is that his hifz was ajib. It is said that he memorized the Quran in 80 days. He memorized the Quran in 80 days. 30 Hafz al-Hakami. From scratch. Yeah, Hafz al-Hakami. Zuhri, you both from scratch. 80 days. 30 days Hafz al-Hakami. Hafz al-Hakami, when he memorized the Quran, he used to, there was nobody to lead Qiyam. So he was like a shepherd in the daytime. He used to work out in the open. And he'd memorize tonight and then lead in the night with what he memorized in the day. Next day he memorized the next juz and then lead in the pressure zone. وهكذا. الله أكبر. Exactly. Sheikh Muhammad used to say that, had he lived, he would have been like Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah, of that type of scholarship. It was ajib. You read his books now, and his kutub that he authored, and he died in his 30s. Read his books now. It's the books of an allama, and in kutub you believe he was an elderly alim, died young. So had he lived, he was from the contemporaries of Sheikh Ahmed al-Najmi. Had he lived, there's no doubt that he would have been amazing. On the dot, on the nose. سهل عبد الله. ليث بن سعد. ليث بن سعد he mentioned ما رأيت عالما قد أجمع من ابن شهاب. ليث بن سعد. What do you suggest we do with these 6 now? Huh? You want to get into mashahir? Huh? Do you saying? Yeah? Get the 6. Ajma' min Ibn Shihab. Alright, we'll do it that way then. We'll do it that way. So we'll pick up from Zuhri next week, inshallah. والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.